And we hope you're all joining us today. Thank you for joining us. All right, I can see some of you coming in, so that's great. Okay, well, let's get started. So thank you very much for joining us today to learn some new kitchen hacks to stop wasting food and money. My name is Pia Nagpal. I'm with Food Mesh. Food Mesh is a social enterprise based out of Vancouver, dedicated to reducing food waste across Canada. But before we dive into this session, I just wanted to share a few housekeeping things with you. So this session is being recorded. If you would like to turn on captions, that is an option. So you can follow along in the language of your choice. There is a click show captions button in the Zoom menu bar at the bottom of your screen. You can toggle the translation button on and then click on my caption language. And then there you'll be able to select the language of your choice. If you have any questions for our speaker, please submit them anytime. The Q&A feature is open for this webinar. And we also have reactions opened. So we are hoping that you will be able to share your thumbs up, share your hearts throughout the presentation tonight. And then once the speaker portion is complete, we will do a Q&A session and try to answer as many questions as we can. And at the end of the session, we'll be asking you to complete a short evaluation to let us know how the session was for you. Okay, so let's just dive in and set the context for this discussion. So Love Food Hate Waste research tells us that each year, 2.3 million tons of edible food waste is being wasted in Canadian households. So we know that some of that is unavoidable, the bones or the eggshells or the tea bags, but that means that 63% of food that is being wasted is avoidable, meaning at one time that food could have been eaten. It is edible food that could have been eaten. And this is coming to a huge cost at us. As Canadian households, we're wasting around $1,300 on perfectly edible food going to waste. And every year, millions of Canadians are throwing out this perfectly good food because of date labels, because of best before dates. There is a common misconception that food is no longer good to eat once it hits that date. And so we're really excited to have Getty here because she's going to share some of this information and talk to us about this. But the truth is, best before doesn't mean bad after. It's simply a guide to help us when food has reached its peak freshness, if it's unopened or stored correctly. So Love Food Hate Waste, we are here on a mission to help Canadians understand the true meaning on best before dates so that we can make these informed decisions when assessing our food in the kitchen. And hopefully to save us some money and preventing food from going to waste. So this webinar series has been bringing together food waste experts to explore different ways that we can ensure we are spending the most time with our food and making the most of the food we buy. All right, so let's move on to this webinar and the reason that you guys are all here. With us today, we have a good friend of mine, Getty Stewart. Getty is a fresh food educator who helps make the most of their food by showing how to select, store, and savor seasonal produce. With degrees in human ecology and education and lifelong roots in prairie agriculture and gardening, she blends practical kitchen know-hows with deep respect for local seasonal ingredients. Known for her warm, down-to-earth style, Getty shares her passion through writing, workshops, and social media. So I hope you guys will all connect with her at gettystewart.com or follow her on Instagram at getgettys. So over to you, Getty.
Hello, everyone. These were bought on the exact same day. This one was tossed in the fridge and kind of forgotten about. This one got a little TLC. The difference is obvious, and I think I know which I would prefer to put in my dinner tonight. So that just goes to show a little respect for our food and a little TLC goes a long way. And that's the part I'm excited to share with you tonight. We want to get into the practical side of how to keep, how to plan, and how to use your food so that you can make the most of it. And through a lifetime of growing up on a farm, raising animals, foraging for food in the wild, gardening, starting a fruit rescue, I've come to love and appreciate and respect food. And so, like you, because you signed up tonight, anytime that you see food wasted, it kind of hurts. So let's figure out ways that we can make the best of our food. And there are 3 key strategies we're going to cover tonight: how to plan it, how to keep it, and how to use it. So let's dive right in with planning. Now, tell me with the emojis. I want to see lots of emojis tonight. Tell me with the emojis if you agree with this statement. To reduce the amount of food we waste, we bring in less food into our house. So if we bring in less food into our house, we're going to waste less. Yeah? Show me. Show me. Absolutely. So that's the key. Bringing in less food equals less food waste. Sounds kind of obvious, but how do we do it? And the first step in all of this is to plan it out. The more we plan, the better we are at thinking about what's coming into our house. And the less food that comes into our house, the less food we end up composting or tossing. So it all comes down to planning. And I know you've heard this before and you probably don't want to hear it anymore, but meal planning. It's the golden ticket to really coming up with strategies for thinking about what am I actually going to make this week, thinking about what's my schedule like, what are the other people in my house doing, when do I need a quick meal, when do I need a cold meal, are there times where I'm just going to pull out something from the freezer. So really using that strategy and coming up with a meal plan. Now, I like once in a while doing these fancy ones and fill it out, but sometimes it's just a blank piece of paper. Sometimes it's just a post-it note. Sometimes it's a note on my phone as I'm going grocery shopping. So it doesn't need to be fancy. It's just the more ideas you have down on paper, the more you're going to be able to create a shopping list that you can then stick to and bring in less food into the house. And throughout all of the stuff that I'm saying this evening, all of the tips and information that I'm going to be sharing, I want you to think about what happens at your house, because all of our houses are different and all of the challenges we face are going to be a little bit different. So what is the challenge in your house? And when you're planning your meals, what is the challenge for you? Is it getting motivated to cook at all? Is it coming up with ideas? Because meal planning really can come in handy. And if you have sheets like this, you just keep them and then you have a whole folder of them that you can go back to. Is it figuring out what to do with the leftovers? And so again, the planning can help you figure out, well, if I'm going to have rice on Monday, I might want to make extras so I have it for soup on Tuesdays, or maybe I can repurpose it on Wednesday, and incorporating that into our meal plans. Now, the number one tip I have for meal planning, and I've written lots of articles on this for Love Food, Hate Waste and for my own website, but the number one tip I want to share with you on how to do meal plans is to think differently, a little bit of a mind shift when we're creating that meal plan. Oftentimes we're thinking, what do I want to eat this week? And then we're faced with a blank page, and that is a daunting question. And then you ask your family, hey family, what do you want to eat this week? And if your family is like my family, you may get, oh, I don't know. Usually it's that, oh, I don't know. That's how my family talks. So it's daunting coming up with that. So instead of thinking, what do I want to eat next week? And the possibilities are endless. I saw that emoji. I know it happens at your house too. So instead of starting with that daunting question, do a little mind shift and ask yourself, what do I already have in the fridge that I can use up? And start with that. So right now in my fridge, I know that there's some cabbage. have some potatoes out in the pantry, and there's carrots out in the garden. So just even thinking about those ingredients already, ideas are popping into my mind. And I'm thinking a cabbage potato soup, or maybe potato and carrot au gratin or something like that. But just having a starting base. Not only does that help with coming up with ideas, but suddenly you're using up that food that's already in your fridge and you're well ahead of the game. So, meal plan. Plan it out. Now, I got something for you. If meal planning is just not your jam and you think it's not a lot of fun, I want to help you off with this one. I've created a 6-week meal plan focused on fall foods for you to have for free right now. So you're going to have access to a link and you can download that meal plan. It includes 6 weeks of dinner ideas with recipe links. You're going to get a list of seasonal food that's in season this autumn here in Canada. And then tips for how to store that food. So some of the information that we'll be sharing tonight. And you're also going to get a template for creating your own meal plans. So you'll have 6 weeks to start from, and then you can just plot your own and get started. So I wanted to share that with you because I really do appreciate the fact that you're here tonight, that you're showing that dedication to making the most of your food, and just have a little starting spot for you. So look for that link and get those meal plans going and make it a regular habit. And hopefully having those 6 weeks will be a good start for you. So we're going to move from plan it to let's keep it. So from the meal plan comes a shopping list. And this is where you get to really be strategic and say, so if I'm only going to have one night where I'm using mushrooms or one night where I'm using avocados, maybe I pass by the big bargain deals and maybe I don't need 8 avocados this week. Maybe it makes more sense for me to buy just 1 or 2 that I'm going to need for that meal. Because show me some emojis. Does anyone ever buy and compost avocados, never actually getting to the point where you eat them? Bags like this are tricky. Some of them are green. They tend to ripen at the same time. So unless you eat a lot of avocados, this can be tricky. Sometimes I have seen deals where you can get like 8 cucumbers or 3 cucumbers like this for a really good bargain price. But we've got to remember, is it a bargain if we end up tossing it out? So we need to be strategic in that shopping list and only buy what we need. And then comes a whole issue of best before dates. And we heard Pia say that best before dates are really confusing to people. And it's why we've got a whole month dedicated to best before and understanding what those dates mean. Now, hands up if you know that best before dates are not an indicator of food safety. Do you know that? Yes, I see some thumbs coming up. Yeah, they're not an indicator of food safety. They're a manufacturer's best guess as to how long their food will keep the quality that they're promising. So the best color, the best texture, the best flavor, the best nutrient content that they're promising on the package. And best before dates only apply to closed, properly stored food items. So the minute you come home and you open up that container, this date becomes completely null and void. But what do? We look at that date, even though it's been open in the fridge for like 3 days, we look at that date and go, oh no, I can't. No, that's not how best before dates are meant to be used. 3 ways that I use best before dates. Number 1, when I'm shopping, I do look often, especially with my dairy and with my meats, I look for the furthest away date. So I'm that shopper that reaches to the back and brings that home, because for me and my fridge, I want the longest possible shelf life I can. I want to start with the freshest food first. So I do look at that date. When I'm shopping, when the food is closed, and then I bring it home, and then I pretty much forget about that best before date. The second way I use it, completely the opposite. I look for the discount. I'm going to go to my freezer bag that I've got here, or my cold bag. I look for this. Now, I know some people, this little sticker scares them a little bit. They're worried that maybe this food isn't safe. But I look for this if I know that I can use it right away, or I can freeze it right away, and I can save money on my groceries by taking advantage of this price reduction. So that's another way that I use best before dates. Putting it back in the cold room here. So I want to take advantage of the sales, and the caveat there is, of course, you need to be able to use it right away or be able to freeze it right away. So 1 to 2 day limit on that. And thirdly, the way I use best before dates is when I bring the food home and I'm putting it in my pantry or in my fridge. I want to do what grocery stores, restaurants do, what the professionals do. And that is they put the furthest date in the back and the nearest date to the front. So the idea of first in, first out, so that I'm using the oldest food first and putting the freshest food towards the back. Probably you guys are doing that. Tell me you're doing that. Show me those emotions. Emojis, I think is the technical word. Yeah, awesome. That's a great strategy. We definitely want to practice that first in, first out, and make sure that we're using those best before dates to our advantage. Once those containers are open, the best before date is really irrelevant. When it comes to sort of shopping as well, and that having that plan, sour cream was my issue. I used to buy sour cream like my mom did, and she'd always look for the per gram price. And oftentimes the bigger container or the medium-sized container was the best price per gram for sour cream. I followed in my mom's footstep. Every week when I'd go shopping, I'd buy the big container, but I didn't cook like my mom. And so I never finished the sour cream container. And that was, remember I asked you to think about what's happening in your house. This was happening in my house. I tossed a lot of sour cream. And so now, even though it's more per gram, now I buy the little containers, and that's only when I need it because I have my meal plan in place. So those are some of the strategies when we're doing the shopping and bringing food home. All right, we're going to get into how to keep some of this food as fresh for as long as possible. Now we got to face facts here. We're not going to move mountains. There is a certain shelf life to food. It is an organic material, and that's why it's impossible for manufacturers or stores or the government to say, cucumbers will always last 3 days if you do this. It's an organic material. It's going to be different every time. But there are strategies that we can do to do the best possible things for our fruits and veggies. Speaking of best possible things, let me show you what the reality of what happens in my house. So I am a food educator. I am well trained in how to package stuff. And yet you come to my fridge and you're probably gonna see this, like cheese just sort of wrapped. Oftentimes there's, I don't know if you can see, but there's little edges all dried out. Oh yeah, see, I see the emojis. You know what I'm talking about, right? The little crusties on the end of the cheese. So there's a difference. There's a difference between what I learned at school and how you're supposed to officially, properly wrap these things and what actually happens in our homes. And there's a spectrum. There's like the absolute pristine best. And then there's the, well, if I could get my kids to do this, that would be brilliant. So at the very least, I want everyone in my house to at least cover off so that the cheese is protected from air. So somehow at least do this. Or ideally, you would take it out of the plastic wrap. And if you talk to a cheese connoisseur, a cheese expert, if you will, they will tell you, take it out of the plastic because cheese needs to breathe, they will say. And so maybe a beeswax wrap, and then you place the cheese in there, and then you wrap it really well to, again, protect from direct air contact, but still allow it to breathe. So perhaps beeswax wrap, or perhaps parchment paper or wax paper or butcher paper. Oh, now that would be ideal, wouldn't it? So that's the ultimate. I've seen even where if you really want your cheese to last longer, you kind of swaddle it in a cloth soaked in a little bit of vinegar. I mean, I can barely get my family to do this. So swaddling in a lightly soaked vinegar towel is not going to happen in my house. So we gotta meet them where they're at. So here's another option. So we don't always take it out of the plastic container or wrap. So again, meeting my people where they're at, even myself, like I'd be too lazy to take it out of the wrap all the time. So I use this little, well, we call it a cheese diaper, and you wrap it up and you get it really tight. The idea here is wrap it really tight to prevent air from getting to the end and prevent moisture coming in and out of that cheese. If cheese is an issue for you, if you know that, man, we always got the molded cheese, then maybe you need to be doing something different. Maybe you need to go all out, full out. Maybe you got a swaddle in vinegar bath, or maybe, just maybe, you need to buy less cheese. Just saying. The other thing you can do with cheese is you can grate it, you can put it in the freezer. You can freeze the whole block like this. If you're going away, you don't have time, put it in a plastic bag or container, put it in the fridge, in the freezer, and it'll be fine there. It'll be crumbly, but it's fine in your casseroles, in your baked dishes, on your pizza. So that's something that we want to do. So just to point out that there's the ultimate in what we can do. And then there's the practical. And then there's the, gosh, I hope people don't do this at my house anymore. So we're moving along the line. Wherever you are, go to the next level. When it comes to storing food, the best thing that we can do, I want you to come a little closer here. There's the enemies of freshness, and that's what we got to control for. So what are the enemies of freshness? Bet you can think of some of them. It's air, temperature, moisture, time, and people. People are the worst, like the cheese people. So if we can control for most important out of those, so temperature, of course, but also moisture and air. That's what most of our fruits and veggies, our meats, that's what we need to pay attention to when we're putting them in the fridge. So I'm going to go through a few examples and share some ideas for what to do. So let's talk about dairy. Dairy needs to be cold. So if you have milk issues, if your milk goes sour quite quickly or regularly, maybe consider taking it out of the door and putting it into the main shelf of the fridge, because the door is one of the warmer spots in your fridge, and you want to get the coldest part in your fridge when it comes to your dairy products. So move it out of the door and into the heart of the fridge where it's nice and cold. We also want to protect from air. There's only a certain amount of time that you have, but the key thing with dairy is actually people. People are the enemies of fresh dairy, because sometimes we take the milk out and we leave it on the table while we have breakfast for like 30 minutes. If we do that every day for 3 to 5 days, this milk is not at ideal temperature, and it's going to be compromised. So pour yourself that milk and then put it back in the fridge is the best strategy. When it comes to, and I know this would never happen at your house. I mean, it never happens at my house. My people are good on this one, but drinking out of the milk carton is, well, you know that's a no-go, right? Double dipping in the yogurt container, definitely a no-no. Putting your finger in the feta brine and pulling out a piece of feta, no. Even though it's a brine, it's salty, it's acidic, we're not putting our fingers in there, right? We're using a fork. Yeah. By the way, this is a little pumpkin. It's not. I just fooled you. I didn't put my fingers in the feta brine. So take care of what you're doing, and don't rely on the best before date. If you've opened it, it's null and void. So you're gonna have to put your nose in there and smell it and see and take a look. Your yogurt, your sour cream, dairy is really good about telling you if it's gone off. So you will definitely smell something sour. It will be curdly. It will start to have an off color. In your sour cream container, you might notice an orangey or pinkish hue. That's the start of mold growth that will quickly turn into gray mold, or just discoloration of your feta or of your cottage cheese or cream cheese, those kinds of things. So just watch. Most of those things, a lot of people introduced germs. So when we're putting our fingers in, when we're cross-contaminating. So we need to be careful with that. So let's switch my page here, keep on track. Let's talk vegetables. So with vegetables, it's controlling for, it's controlling for moisture. That is the key thing. So again, think about what's happening in your fridge. Are your carrots going slimy, or are your carrots drying out? What about your cucumbers? What's happening to your cucumbers? Chances are cucumbers will turn slimy or oogie, as I like to say, rather than drying out. So here's the thing with cucumbers. When you get them like this in this plastic sleeve, that plastic sleeve is really tight and it's protecting your cucumber. It's actually fine just like this. You can put it in the shelf in your fridge. You don't need to put it in the crisper drawer, especially if that crisper drawer has apples in it, because the off-gassing from the apples, that ethylene gas that you've heard about before, will deteriorate cucumbers a little bit faster. So it's okay, just that bottom shelf, put that cucumber on there like that. Once you cut this plastic open, that's when I want you to remove the entire plastic wrap, because once you've opened it, moisture will get trapped underneath that layer, and that moisture is the enemy of freshness and will cause your cucumber to go oogie. So instead, I want you to give it a new wrap. And so we're going to wrap it in paper towel, or, a cloth towel will do as well. And then I put it in a plastic bag and again in the fridge. Now, is the end going to dry out? Yeah, I usually cut a little slice, but a little slice is better than tossing the whole cucumber. So that's what I do with cucumbers. My carrots, for me, carrots tend to dry out. So I like to add a little damp towel to the full bag, or to encourage eating and getting all our fiber, I like to put some snacking carrots in some water. Now, I know those of you who are like, oh, but you lose vitamins if you put them in water. It's like, yes, I'm going to lose some vitamin A. Your water soluble vitamins are going to be lost a little bit. But if I didn't cut them, my people wouldn't eat them. So I'm getting more vitamins into them by cutting them and making it easy to eat and snack on. So just a few, and change that water and keep them like this. They won't have that white crusty bit that people go, oh, I can't. And that white crusty bit on your little baby peeled carrots is just drying out of the carrots. So that's my carrots. My mushrooms. So again, another example of what you should do and what actually happens in people's homes. So what you should do is you should have mushrooms in paper bags. Yeah, you got it. That's the general rule, and that's a good thing for mushrooms. But I'm not coming home from grocery shopping and putting my mushrooms in a brown paper bag. This is how they came at the store, and so this is what I've got. And then I poke a hole and I steal a few mushrooms, put it in my sauce, and then I've got exposed mushrooms. So again, the quick and dirty ways, I'm just going to add a towel here, a protector to sop up any moisture and protect air from drying out the mushrooms. So this is going to give me a little bit of added protection. I don't know if you can tell, but there's a little condensation happening in this container. That's a red flag. Condensation directly on veggies is usually a bad thing. So I need to be using these mushrooms up. And I know, according to my plan, remember the plan? This is Friday night pizza coming up. So I'm good, I think. If I'm not, another good thing to do with mushrooms is to chop them and freeze them. They'll work great in soup. So that's my mushrooms. My avocados. So I leave them outside until they're soft enough and ripe enough. And then I'll move them into the fridge and keep them there. And they'll stay quite well for another week or 2 weeks in the fridge. And I'll just put this bag in the crisper drawer. I typically, again, watch how many you're buying. So I know I need to make plans for these avocados because they're all going to be ripe at the same time. I can just tell. So there's going to be smoothies. There's going to be guacamole. We've got tacos planned for this weekend. And then I can, if I'm making guacamole for the tacos, I'll make extra guacamole. I'll put some lemon or lime juice in there, and then I'll squeeze it. I'll put it in a plastic bag, and I'll squeeze that guacamole really thinly so that it covers all the surface area in the bag, and then I'll seal it, and making sure that I've got some lime juice in there to protect with acid. So that's that. Tomatoes, I leave on the counter until they're ripe. I like eating them when they're not from the fridge. But here's the thing. If it's a matter of, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to toss these tomatoes because they got mushy on the counter, versus putting them in the fridge, put them in the fridge. I know that they might get grainy. It's not ideal. But then not using them isn't ideal either. So put them in the fridge. If you can't get to them right away, you can always put them in soup, sauces, stir fries, frittatas, those dishes where maybe it's not a fresh tomato salad or fresh tomato toast. So that's tomatoes. Talk about my herbs. So obviously, these bright, fresh, luscious herbs, basil, cilantro, parsley, these guys I want to treat like, give them a little herb spa. They like being moist. They're fresh, they're vibrant, they're bright green, they're leafy. They like being in some water. In the fridge, I even put a little bag over top to keep the tops from drying out. Now, if you're worried about having an open jar of water in the fridge, which I don't blame you, we got people, right? I mean, we wouldn't spill them, but somebody else might. So if that's alarming to you, grab a little bit of paper towel and wrap it up. And then add just a little few dribbles of water to the paper towel, because these guys like to have a little bit of dampness, not wet, not sopping, just a little bit of dampness, and then put them in a paper bag or a plastic bag and in the fridge. But wait, what about herbs like sage or thyme or rosemary? These are for lack of a better term, dry herbs, or the woody stem herbs. And they like to stay dry. So you don't want to put them in a bouquet. You don't want to put them in water. They'll do okay, but you can just put them in a dry container with a paper towel. I'm going to add the paper towel to absorb any condensation in the container, and then I'm going to lock them up and put them in the fridge like that. So 2 different methods for different types of herbs. I'm going to get to deli meat. Deli meat comes in the little plastic bag. Sometimes you get them in the butcher paper. The butcher paper is great. Keep them in there. See what's happening in here? I've got a lot of air. Air is the enemy of our deli meat. So we don't want the air in there. So squeeze out the air and then seal it up. So can you get the people in your house to squeeze out the air? That would be great. The other option is you can transfer it, take it out of the plastic. The plastic doesn't really do anything for the meat. You can put it in a different container, take it right out, and put it in there. You could, if you had a fancy dancy vacuum seal machine or a container, that does help prolong the life of the deli meat. So I could take it out of this baggie and put it in there naked. No matter what you do with deli meat, it has a short shelf life. Like, we're talking 3 days, maybe 4. You don't want to push your luck with deli meat. So plan to eat it. If you're tired of sandwiches, put it in your frittatas, put it in your egg dishes, put it in the freezer. You could put this whole container in the freezer. It's going to be a little wetter than the original, but you can absolutely put it in the freezer and then pull it out and put it in other dishes if you don't want to use it for sandwich meat. So I'm going to put that back in my freezer here. Speaking of what's in the freezer, it's like, look, I have lemons in the freezer. So we're moving on to, did you know that lemons can be frozen? So I've had these for a while and they're starting to get a little dehydrated in the fridge. So before they go off, stick them in a baggie and freeze them. So see, it's frozen. And then while they're frozen, and give them a wash before you put them in there, dry them well, and then put them in the freezer. And then you can zest them. Can you see? Like, I have zest coming from this lemon. So it's great for zesting when it's out of the freezer. And then when you thaw it, so you're going to have to let it thaw, you're going to get more juice out of that lemon than this lemon. And you know why? Because putting food in the freezer does cause the cells inside the tissue to break open, and sort of all the little containers within the fruit and food break apart. The water freezing sort of pushes the boundaries. So the tissue is broken. It's going to give you more juice. I kid you not. You may have seen this TikTok thing where people are putting lemons and their avocados in water and sealing it in a jar. Hands up if you've seen that. Okay, don't do that. It's a TikTok lie. The water will permeate into the lemons and into the avocados, and there's a risk of introducing pathogens to the inside of the fruit. So don't do that. Put them in the freezer instead, okay? Berries. Here's another example where berries, they cost a fortune. We want to make them last. I bought these on Tuesday. Do you think they'll last until Thanksgiving dessert time? Like if I'm talking Monday, that's 6 days. Do you think these are going to last 6 days? Probably not. That's not their natural shelf life. They probably will last 3-4 days and still look beautiful, like I want to present them on Thanksgiving. So what's the best way to store berries? And you've probably heard all kinds of things. So again, we have the spectrum. There's the ultimate, and there's the things that you're actually going to do at home. So if your container comes with little diapers on the bottom, then these containers are actually not bad. They're shallow. They allow for a little bit of air circulation, and the little diaper absorbs extra moisture. So you can just leave them in there. Have a plan to eat them. The ultimate way, if I want to make these last until Thanksgiving for those 6 days, I can wash them in a vinegar bath. 3 parts water to 1 part vinegar, and I can swish them around, let them soak for about a minute, and then rinse them off with clean water. Remember the enemies of freshness? Moisture is one of the enemies, especially of fruit and berries. And generally the rule is don't wash them because you're going to introduce moisture. And that's the rule I usually follow. So if you want to go to extremes, you can give it that vinegar bath. It'll help control for mold. But then you're going to have to dry them really well. You don't want to introduce that moisture. So after the vinegar bath, the rinsing, you're going to have to pat them dry gently because they're tender berries, or leave them out on a cloth for about an hour. No. Remember, I barely can get the cheese wrapped. If I can do that, if I can get my family to do that every time they open this container and have a berry, I've got a pretty magical family, right? Yeah. So we do the best that we can. And if we have problems with keeping fresh berries, then maybe we need to consider our planning and how much we buy. For example, in my house, I don't buy grapes anymore. It seemed to me that whenever I bought grapes, we were pretty good at chowing down the first layer of grapes, and then the bottom layers just never got eaten. There was like maybe one almost soft grape, and then people were like, that's it, no more grapes. So I stopped buying grapes unless I know for sure we're having a grape and cheese charcuterie thing going on, or I have a very specific plan for them. So of course, these berries, if they're going to start to go, just pop them in the freezer, pop them in a smoothie, make good use of them. They are too precious, too expensive, and they take way too many resources for us to be tossing away. So that's my little rant about berries. We've talked, I wanted to show you green onions. This is always really fun. So if you have green onions and you leave a little bit, so take them and cut them here, and then pop this bottom root part in a little glass of water. I did this on Sunday. So in 3 days growth, all of that in like no time. So green onions you can repurpose like this, and you'll have fresh tender shoots for weeks. So you can repeatedly do that. You can also do that with celery. Now, results will vary, but if you want to do something cool in your kitchen and just have a little experiment going, if you cut your celery and you leave this little base, you can also regrow your celery. So in a little glass of jar of water, you're going to replace that water every 3 days or so. And then these outer layers are going to start to get oogy. So you can remove those, and just that inner part is going to grow. I have actually transplanted this into the garden in springtime, not in autumn. So there's no way that this is going to last until next spring, but I will get enough greens to put in a soup or to garnish a dish. So kind of a fun way to keep food and really build that appreciation and understanding for the people in your home that food is cool, food is alive and changes. So we've got that going. So those were the key foods that I wanted to share with you. Now, in the use it up section, I hope I've tried sort of sharing some ideas for using up the food and putting it in the freezer, making good use of your freezer. But the final thing, of course, is to actually use your food and not just see how long you can let it last in the fridge. Use it up, follow that plan that you've made, and make those recipes. When I find I can't, like I have extras, odds and ends in the fridge, I like to turn to what I call my hero recipes. Those recipes that are more like formulas, where I can just toss things together. So an omelet or a frittata, egg dishes are fantastic for using up eggs, a little bit of dairy, some of that extra cheese, even the little crusty bits on the outside works great in a frittata or an egg dish. If I have avocados and berries and a little bit of dairy or dairy alternative, I can make a smoothie really quick and have that as a way of using up what's in the fridge. My mushrooms and other fruits and veg, I can make a soup. I can make a stir fry. So generally some hero recipes, they're more formulas than they are precise recipes, and you can adapt and adjust, use those herbs. Even the wilty parsley can work great in soups and so forth. So use up your food, make the most of it. And speaking of make the most of it, Pia is also going to tell you about this, but we talk more about those hero recipes in our Make the Most of Your Food challenge coming up later this month. So if you want to learn more, want to keep hearing what I got to say about food waste, join me for that Make the Most of Your Food challenge. And I'm going to pass it back over to Pia, and thank you so much for joining. If you like what you hear, follow along with gettystewart.com, and we'll keep the conversation going.
Thank you, Getty. Getty, you and I have been, I think it's been, 6, maybe almost 8 years that we've been working together, and I still learn something new every time we chat. I didn't know you could put lemons in the freezer and then zest them that way. I always try and use them right away. So there you go. I've learned something new. So thank you, Getty.
Awesome. You're welcome.
Yeah, we've had some great questions. Some of them actually you've answered as you've been chatting, but I'd like to share anyway, and then feel free for you to respond. But so one of them is about, creating the kitchen can kind of feel daunting. And so you don't always know what things go together and what I can make with what I have. So do you have recommendations as to where or how I can find meal ideas with the individual ingredients I have available to me?
So, love or hate Google, but even if you type in ingredients into Google, it will often give you ideas or suggestions, or recipes will pop up. you and use it just for inspiration. You may not find a specific recipe that you've got, but it's like, right, curries. I love curries. That's an excellent idea. I'm going to use my leftover beans and my cauliflower and my potatoes, and I'm going to do some kind of curry or a soup recipe. And on our Love Food Hate Waste site, I know that we have a blog post about a formula for how to make a soup when you don't have a recipe. And so looking at things like that, those formulas rather than precise recipes where you need exact ingredients, and figuring out what you can easily swap.
Yeah, I think these hero recipes you talk about are great because you don't have to have all the exact pieces, but you just need the idea of, okay, I can make a curry, like you said, or pasta and throw everything in. That's great. Okay, another question we've had is, I've heard of washing fruit and vegetables in diluted vinegar. You talked about this to preserve them. Does this work?
It does work. It does help. So if you do have the patience and the time to do that, so again, the formula is 3 parts water, 1 part vinegar, just white, regular vinegar. And you give them a little bit of a wash, let them sit for about a minute, and then rinse them with plain water so that you don't taste any of the vinegar. But the key is you have to remove the moisture afterwards. So you can pat them dry, or you can lay them out before you put them back into a container. And I would probably do a container like this. So a glass container, I would probably line it with paper towel or a cloth, and then put my berries in there. Ideally, a shallow container. I know there's another crazy TikTok or social media trend where people are putting berries in jars. I don't know how the berries at the bottom don't get squished. And introducing moisture, like if moisture gets trapped in there, it's game over. Mold will grow like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then this is something else that you talked about. We had a couple questions on it. So is it true that what molds on cheese is actually the bacteria from our hands or any foreign matter that touched it, not actually the cheese itself causing the mold?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. My guess is that our handling of it definitely does have the potential to introduce bacteria and mold and pathogens to the cheese. I don't know if that's always the case, but our habits are part of the issue when it comes to keeping our food fresh and safe. So whenever you can, making sure that you're not putting your hands on all the surfaces of the food. So even the way I was manhandling my poor little cucumber, the less direct contact. Pia, you mentioned that sometimes when you're cutting a loaf of bread, or when you're people, I mean, you would never, but
of course not.
People, sometimes like they grab the whole bread and then they're slicing. So the more we put our fingers on things, yes, the more pathogens we introduce. Mold, when we're talking about mold on cheese, is it okay to cut the mold piece off? So the general rule of thumb is on hard surfaces. So hard cheeses like cheddar or Parmesan, we can cut sort of 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters around the mold on all sides. So you can't, like, on all sides. Because mold does, when you're seeing mold, you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. It grows roots. And the harder the surface, the less likely or the longer it will take for those roots to grow through that food. So that's why the 1 inch perimeter. You can't do that with cream cheese. You can't do that with jams and jellies. Right. You can't do that with cottage cheese. Only those hard foods.
What about fingers in a pickle jar?
Fingers in a pickle jar. I know it's acid, so it seems like it should be okay, right? But anytime we're introducing that extra challenge to our food. Like we're just doing a disservice to the food. So it's probably going to be okay because of the high acid environment, but it's better if you use a fork. And so this is, how do we get kids involved in becoming good stewards of food, is teaching them, like, let's use a fork when we go digging for, and gosh, you can make it fun, right? It's like,
you said it yourself, some of these habits we learn from, that are passed on. If you were buying the large tub of sour cream, you learn these habits. So if we can show those habits, our children will learn them as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Getty, that cheesecloth that you pulled out there earlier, what's that made of? Oh, sorry, that cheese diaper, I should say, not cheesecloth, that diaper.
My little diaper. So this is a local company in Winnipeg called Practical Homestead. Yeah, that makes this, and it's lined with a food grade. It's almost a plastic / silicone kind of lining, and then it's cotton on this side, and it has the Velcro and like a little bandana, but it's great for my cheese. So you can get a really snug fit around the cheese. And if you do happen to leave it in the plastic, it works. If you take it out of the plastic, I really like the beeswax wrap for the cheese.
Yeah. So what about veggies? If veggies are stored in a crisper drawer, this is a question we had. Do they need to be protected with wrap, like the beeswax or the plastic or cloth?
Yeah. So every veggie is going to be a little bit different.
Okay.
Something like beets, they don't need protection. Carrots, technically no, but the problem is that they're going to lose moisture and they're going to start shriveling up. So better to wrap them in something. If you wanted to move away from plastic, even a paper bag would be better for carrots, just to control for keeping in that moisture a little bit. And so, I mean, you can absolutely experiment a little bit, do small packages, see what works in your fridge. The humidity level in our fridges will vary. The humidity in our room temperature will vary depending on where we are in Canada as well. So, and time of year. So test things out and see what works, and keep your eye out on things, and learn, experiment, figure out your food.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks, Getty. I know we've all learned a lot of great tips. One of the other things I think you mentioned is that, if it's a bargain, but we end up tossing it, then, it really wasn't a bargain. So sometimes we buy those packs of 3 or whatever it is we get, but if we don't have a plan and we can't use it, then it really was a waste. So thank you. Thanks for sharing with us today and chatting with us about all these ways we can store our food properly, make our plan, use everything up. We really, really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
And oh, great. Thank you. And I'm just going to ask for all our participants. I know there's many more questions and there's lots that we want to keep chatting with Getty about. Like I said, I learn something new every time, but I do want to thank you all for taking the time to join us today. We hope that you did find it as informative as I did. And we'd love if you could just take a minute to fill out a quick poll that we have. And this will help us obviously design future sessions. So I'll just give you a minute to do that. Before we just sort of wrap up. And then as you're doing that, just did want to share with you that, as we mentioned at the beginning, this is a series of webinars. We are running our Best Before Dates campaign right now. So we do have upcoming webinars as well. If you would like to join us, please do so. You can visit our website to find out the dates and times of those. And then as Getty mentioned, we have this fun, free challenge, 4-week challenge coming up starting on October 18th. Getty is one of our hosts, so we're very excited, along with her friend Alex. And it's a 4 weeks challenge where you'll be getting practical tips, resources, a how-to video with Getty, where you'll learn things throughout the 4 weeks and really easy practical things you can do at home. There are 4 prizes, 4 $500 prizes up for grabs, as well as a fridge friend unit, which will help you keep food fresher for longer in your fridge. So we hope you'll sign up. You can find that link as well on our website, and you'll join us and Getty through those 4 weeks. I hope you've all had a chance to complete the poll. You can visit lovefoodhatewaste.ca for more information. Oh, and Getty's meal plan is there as well. So for any of you who are looking for her meal plan, that is available directly on the website. Thank you. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Have a great evening.